It's a pleasure to take a short call on this bill, and I want to first acknowledge the government's work on bringing this Offshore Renewable Energy Bill to the House. It's something to celebrate, to be introducing a piece of legislation in which the intent is to establish a regulatory framework for offshore wind energy in New Zealand. That's a great thing, because by 2030, this country has signed up to commitments which require us to have 100% renewables in our energy grid. That's achievable for New Zealand. That is possible. We are a country rich in natural resources, especially our water. Our dams were built so many decades ago that now the cost of running them is negligible. And that energy should be cheap. It is the greenest in the world, and it's something New Zealanders should be proud of. Our offshore wind energy also provides us with so many significant opportunities for not only economic growth, but for cheaper energy prices for consumers. So that's something we can all agree on in this House, and that this piece of legislation is a step towards that. It's something that we should be able to get around the select committee room table and really get into the detail about how to make this work for New Zealanders. Because the government says that it's still committed to increasing the supply of affordable clean energy and facilitating New Zealand's transition to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But what we need to make sure is that pieces of legislation like this don't gloss over the fact that the government is cutting many of the things which will help it to achieve those commitments. We need to hold them to these commitments in this piece of legislation. But things like lifting the oil and gas exploration ban, Mr. Speaker, fly in the face of that. Delaying agricultural emissions pricing for 5 years flies in the face of that. Promoting mining projects have already been considered and rejected flies in the face of that. Missing its own EV targets which it promised voters at the election flies in the face of that. We need offshore wind to step into the gap that this government has created with its policy choices. And New Zealand, as we know, is a signatory to the Paris Agreement. We have signed up to not only our domestic obligations in the Climate Change Response Act, but also to our global obligations that our partners rely on us for and that our trade relationships rely on us for. Our EU FTA is a world-leading trade response. It's great for our agricultural sector. We need our trade partners in the EU to believe that New Zealand is still committed to our clean green reputation, and here on this side of the House, we are. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage government members to find a way to expedite the process for this. This should be something that we can all agree needs to happen quickly and needs to happen well. Those two things can be done at once. This legislation is expected to be passed mid-25, with the first permits being considered at the end of next year. We need to make sure that there's no impediment to getting these projects built. A project that would get in the way of an offshore wind energy project, as Glenn Bennett has mentioned, is deep-sea mining projects, which are directly in competition with the kind of space that these projects will need. So it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that these projects, these wind projects that we all agree are needed, are given priority within the regulatory framework. I'll tell you how that's done overseas. In Ireland, they are very committed to the offshore wind energy projects. In fact, they have legislation like this alongside ambitious capacity targets, Mr. Speaker, for how much wind should be generating in the energy grid. I think it's 5 gigawatts, Mr. Speaker, that was set for the 2030 goal. That would mean a huge investment not only in government but also through private development. If the government truly believes in getting these projects off the ground, it needs to set targets in an energy plan. But where's the energy plan, Mr. Speaker? It is not here. We do not have it because the government has not owned up to the fact that they need a plan to transition to net zero. We need that plan and to be able to integrate offshore wind into it. Ireland also has a comprehensive policy framework and a national strategy for offshore wind. That needs to sit alongside this legislation, so it's not merely window dressing. And I hear members on the other side saying, weren't we working together? I'm doing their homework for them, Mr. Speaker. I can give them the national energy plan in Ireland to study up and do their homework so that they know how legislation like this can actually make a difference to not only New Zealand's commitments on the world stage to climate change, but also domestically, so that New Zealanders now have cheaper energy, so that our children in the future have an environment that they can enjoy, have air that they can breathe. Mr. Speaker, this is incredibly important to everyone in this House, but we need to hold the government to the commitments that they say outside one side of their mouth, but cut things that will really make a difference to it out the other. This must make a difference. This is all they've got, so we're relying on it.
She can do my homework for me any day of the week. I love a copy of her homework. Yeah, so the Electrify New Zealand plan, yeah, that's a problem. I looked all over the internet for it. I can't find it.
Yep.
So that'd be nice. I'd like to get a copy of the plan. Yeah, she basically said the same thing as what Glenn said. You know, you can't have mining and wind in the same area. And this is why the Greens are really big into onshore wind as well, because it is cheaper. It is quicker to establish. I know people don't like the windmills because it's woke wind turbine, the spitty things in the countryside.
But even though they were around long before the word woke translated to, I don't like it.
Hey, I love woke windmills.
Yes, how many do you get to see from your backyard?
Quite a few. I don't mind. Some people get really aggro about it.